So we'll welcome, we're here to talk about millennials. How many of you guys work with millennials? Nice, 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 awesome. All right, so we're going to talk about them, we're going to understand them. If you're a millennial, bear with us because we want to understand you. So help, contribute, but please don't take any offense. We are going to do a little bit of stereotype in there as far as the massive numbers of millennials. So you heard my background. I do leadership training. I also do one-on-one coaching. I've done this program for several hospitals downtown, a couple other clients and other associations, and I've tried to make it very interactive. So with that, I have Candy up here. So the first person to ask any question that I ask, I give you a treat. And as you heard, if you put your business card in the fishbowl, I'll give away 2 of the books that this program was based on. This program, if you look in the back of your material, you'll also see some additional resources. I highly recommend the Urban Bound and the Deloitte surveys, which are several hundred pages. I'm sorry, is it blurring that? Okay, yeah, thank you. All right. So if you didn't put your card in there, please raise your hand. You heard? All right. So the fishbowl. These are the 2 books, but again, in the back are additional resources for you. All right. So without further ado, what are we going to accomplish in our short time together? We're going to understand the millennials. We're going to talk about 5 key points to understanding them. We're going to talk about what they look for and what they need in an organization and what they value. All right, again, Urban Bound and Deloitte are where a lot of this came from, as well as these articles. So we're going to talk about what the survey shared with us. We're going to talk about their use of social media. That's a big issue. We're also going to talk about how to help them to retain them if you are a business owner. I'm assuming we have some business owners in the room and you want to retain the millennials. How do you do that? How do you meet their needs? What do they expect from you as an employer? So we're going to accomplish all that in our short time together. So a lot of times people ask me, and I speak on the 5 generations, which is just a little variation of this program. But people will say to me, are there really 5 generations in the workforce? Well, currently today there are 4 generations out there, but soon to be 5. Did you know that? Let me introduce to you the 4 generations we have today and what that 5th one will be. So this is from the U.S. Department of Census. These are basic numbers, of course, at a large level as far as where we are. But we still have those individuals that are out there that are working that were born prior to 1946. We call them our silent generation. Some people know them as the traditionalists or the veterans. There's right around 2 to 3% still out there. All right, so they're still working. Then you have my generation, yes, the baby boomers. All right, we have a lot of the baby boomers still out there. We were the biggest, actually we have been known as the largest generation in history. We were born 1946 to 1964. And then we have out there working right now Gen X, 1965 to 1976. Every generational expert will put, these numbers might be a little bit different, these dates. We call, and usually they go about 3 years either way. We call that cuspers. So there is a little variation based on the experts, but this is from the Department of Census. Then we have the millennial generation, which is what we're here to talk about today. And actually, just FYI, the millennials don't like to be called millennials, so I apologize to all those in the room. Sometimes we call them Gen Y, so we'll talk about that as well. But we have, these guys were born 1977 to 1997. So they're anywhere from 19 to 34 years old, somewhere in that range. And then the 5th generation, which will be coming to the workforce in the year 2020. They just got their name about 3 months ago. They're now going to be called Gen Z. They were called Gen 2020. That is my 18-year-old at home. Anybody got an 18-year-old at home? That's the first of this generation. All right? We're going to pray. Everybody else pray for Katie and I. All right? We're going to need some prayers. So let's take another look from the U.S. Department of Census as to what percentage and where we are as far as the population. The traditionalists, of course, we already talked about those guys are phasing out. The baby boomers have always been known as the largest generation in history. Second largest, looky here, look what's happening, the millennials. All right, that's why we're talking about them, because they're going to be one of the largest generations in history. And there are so many. All right. Come the year 2020, they will be 50% of the workforce. Wow. So that's why we're talking about them. They're changing the way we work. Their expectations are changing, how the employers do things. All right? This generation right here, Gen Z X, they actually have a nickname. Anybody know the nickname for a candy bar? You heard the nickname?
Payday.
Pardon?
Payday.
Payday? No. I got Hershey's and Reese's. Oh, they think their nickname is Payday. No, their nickname is, actually they're going to have what we call the Prince Charles syndrome, because they're being passed over for the boss roles. All right, being passed over, just like Prince Charles will be passed over, right, by Prince William, most likely for king. It's a nickname there. So Jen, so that's where we are today. All right. So the millennials. Let's talk a little bit about the millennials. Thinking about them, what are some of the words that you would use to describe the millennials? How about tech savvy?
Innovative.
Innovative. All right. She gets a candy bar for that. What else? No, she don't want one. She's on diet. Low self-esteem. Okay. Groupers. Adaptable.
Microwave babies.
Microwave what?
I mean, they want everything quick.
They want everything fast. Beautiful. There we go. They're very much fast. They're very collaborative. How many of you guys have designed huddle rooms for your buildings? And I learned that in college. If you go to a college campus, I just went visiting a bunch of colleges, huddle rooms everywhere, right? Because they work together. They want to collaborate based on the social media. They want their opinion heard.
But they don't talk a lot face to face.
They don't talk a lot face to face. How do they communicate? Texting. Very nice, very nice. What else about this generation should we talk about?
Their impatience.
Their impatience. They want everything quick. That's important to to service providers.
Entitled.
Entitled. That's a big one. So no millennials are allowed to throw anything.
Everybody wants a trophy. Everybody wants to win.
Hey, look at the name of my book. From one of the experts, Bruce Togan, who's one of the experts. Everybody wants a trophy. So interesting enough, though, how many of you guys in the room are actually going to cater to these guys and say they're going to spend money with you? In the year 2018, they will surpass the ability of baby boomers to spend money. So their spending power in next year will be stronger than my generation, the baby boomers. So I do this for a lot of companies that are selling to them. And in Urban Bound and Deloitte, if you sell to them, read the stats there as to what they want and how they want that message delivered. So very important for your PR people and your marketing people to know that. All right, so I encourage you to take a peek. So I already shared with you they're 50% of the workforce in the year 2020. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and 75% of the workforce in the year 2025. 75%. So they're changing the way we're doing business. They're changing the way we're selling. All right. Again, I highly recommend the Deloitte survey. All right. Deloitte survey, they feel, in the Deloitte survey you're going to read, they feel that the businesses are all about money. And they don't value that. They value it, don't get me wrong, but they value other things as well. Anybody have any thoughts on what do you see those guys valuing? Experiences.
And they're so much more open-minded to diversity.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to talk about how they'll go to social media for recommendations.
I was going to say also work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
We have challenges getting younger people to want to work overtime.
Nice.
It's not a money issue, they just don't want to do it.
Right. Just don't want to do it. Excellent. You guys are right on where we're heading with this. They want flex schedule. Absolutely. All of these that you just shared are validated in the Deloitte study. So I encourage you to take a look at that. Their values, all right? They're difficult to understand because their values are different than baby boomers. I do this program a lot for baby boomers who are in senior management because they cannot understand the millennials' values. So we're going to talk about that. So excellent. So what do they want? What do they value? What do they need? Most importantly, of course, they are your future. So let's take a look at the 5 things that you should understand. This is in your book. If you want to take some notes on page 2, please share. If somebody beside you doesn't have one, share a book. There should be booklets laying around somewhere. In the middle of my table is also my business card. If you didn't get a booklet, you want one, you want to share it with people back home at the workplace, just shoot me an email, remind me, and we'll be glad to send it to you. Everybody got one? The Deloitte survey, by the way, was with 7,700 millennials in 29 countries. So if you are working international, there is a nice piece of that survey that is also talks about international selling and marketing. So let's understand these millennials. Number 1, how many of you guys agree with this? They seek peer affirmation and feedback, and they want a lot of feedback. Excellent. Very, very important. They're actually, one of the things that's evolved as a result of the millennials in the workplace is mentoring programs. They're looking for feedback, and what they have done is they have structured online software organizations a mentoring program that kind of looks like Match.com and Twitter.com. Only so many characters can be sent back and forth, but they can have a relationship with anybody, any place in the country. So they sign up, they fill out a profile, the millennial signs up, fill out a profile, and then they're partnered. This is how they got the nickname of being the first global citizens in our country, right? Because they have relationships with people from all over, as well as they were raised playing games with people from all over different countries, right? So they gravitate towards mentorships. So that's important to talk about. When I work with E&Y and Deloitte, some of my clients, they talk about that in the interviewing process because that's what they're looking for. They want to know right up front in the interview, and they'll ask the hiring managers, do you have a mentoring program, a mentorship program? I want to enroll day one. That's super important to them, so keep that in mind. 35% of employees who don't receive regular mentoring plan will look for a new job, guys, within the first 12 months. That's how statistically important it is to them. All right, so keep that in mind. Mentorship can work both ways. They see that they have a lot to offer. So you're going to see a lot of what we call reverse mentoring emerging. A lot of articles about that right now in the HR magazines. And that is where the millennials will mentor senior management. They specifically want a lot of time, if they can, with the president and CEO and help them. Now you're probably wondering, how can they help someone in senior management? Anybody have any ideas what they can do? My millennials in the room? Technology, absolutely, is number one. What else? Social media, for sure.
How to adapt to the people they want to sell to. So if they want to connect with the other millennials, they need them to teach them how to do that.
Exactly, Katie, definitely. They can help market to their generation. Absolutely, super important. All right. Speaking of that, how many of you guys know Glassdoor? You know who Glassdoor is? Okay, Glassdoor.com. If you don't, go out there and check it out. It is a website where companies can be evaluated, where you actually has a whole piece of it too, where you can look for a job, right? So it has a job where people can, or a website where they can post openings. But also what's important about this Glassdoor, and talking about it today, is that it is also a place where you can go, a millennial can go and research the company. It has a place for other individuals who've worked there to go on there anonymously and talk about that organization, the experience they had, positive or negative, and they do rate the CEO/president. So that's the only person they're rating, and Glassdoor does make sure there's no names, of course, of other employees other than the president is out there. So when you go as an employer and you offer benefits to your organization, i.e. one of my big clients, Saint-Gobain, that before I go in, as well as American Greetings, when I go in to present, just like today, I teach a class for them, the first thing that they do is the HR person stands up and says, okay, everybody pull out your phone, go to Glassdoor.com and give us a high five. And say something nice about us offering this training program for you, because they want their ratings high. So if your ratings are not there on Glassdoor or wherever it might be, there's other websites, that's just one of them, check it out and make sure your employees are acknowledging the benefits you're giving them, because they have a whole section on benefits, including training. Millennials trust social media. You guys figured that out? I see eyes rolling around the room. 51% of millennials will go to Glassdoor and trust exactly what they say about XYZ company. Compared to my generation, baby boomers, which only 34% of us will trust that. I'll call somebody. I'll pick up the phone and call someone. Different styles, different ways that we were raised. All right?
Glassdoor is very powerful because sometimes it can change a company's, not culture, but policy around certain issues based on feedback and input from ex-employees or current employees.
Correct. HR monitors it closely. Yes, sir.
And I think in our generation, instead of consulting other users, we would consult an expert. So, if I want to review a cruise I'm going on, I can go to social media and get 8,000 reviews. But in another day, there was a cruise expert site or a book that I could buy or an expert that would tell me. It seems to be like, I'm always looking at somebody who knows it better than I do to tell me, as opposed to a bunch of other people who did it.
Right.
That seems to be the big shift.
That is a big, very good. Thank you for sharing. Good point. Did you have to share?
I was going to say, but they also, the fact that they're going to social media, they consider that the expert.
Correct. Correct. Did you hear what Rosalind said? They consider social media the expert. So it's just a difference. I'm with you. Difference in how we perceive the expert. So before I was speaking with, where's the gentleman goes, we're talking about his wife, does a lot of Facebook, and in my community, there's a whole thing for moms, and they'll put out there, who's the next best plumber? You know, somebody, I need a plumber, somebody recommend one. And they will take the word off the social media. So different. All right, the next one, question for you. Number 2 on this list. Number 2, how many of you guys agree with this, or how many of you guys have heard with this before? Millennials are not all about the money. You heard that? Who agrees with it? My millennial friends in the room too? Okay. All right. So they don't. They're more interested in what? You guys tell me. What are they interested in?
Lifestyle.
Services, lifestyle. They want time. They want to be creative. They want to be creative. They want their opinion asked. They want to come up with ideas, and they want something to be creative. They also want the organization. They're not interested in helping the CEO line their pockets. They want to understand the value and the mission of the organization. So that's very, very important to them. Pardon? The impact. Yes, you got it right there. The impact. They want creativity in the job, or the opportunity to have creativity. All right. So they do think, this is true, a lot of people argue with this, but this is right off of Urban Bound and Deloitte surveys. They think they should be promoted in the next 2 years, 40% of them, right off the survey. All right. So they do want to contribute, and they want to contribute fast, regardless of performance. So they have a little different perception. Now, a lot of times people ask me, well, where did that come from? Any ideas of where that perception came from?
Their parents.
Their parents, everybody gets a trophy, and the colleges. The colleges are costing more money, right? So they're having to sell more. When you get out, you're going to be this, you're going to be that, right? So there's a little bit of that goes into play there. And entitlement. So they want a little something more in the job than what us baby boomers and Gen Xers want. They believe that this is success, 92% of them, should be measured more than just the profit in the organization. They're also looking for the organization, and you see this in the college grads, as to what is the company doing for the community. So a lot of the things that I found interesting in these surveys was in the interviewing process at colleges, they're asking companies, who do you support? Not political, but what charities do you support? What are you doing for the community? I want to be with an organization that's giving back. So that's something that's important to note too. So if you are doing things, broadcast that, share it, talk about it at your town hall meetings. Don't keep it secret, all right? Because that's important to that generation, all right? So again, they want to feel like they're making a difference in the business world and in the world. So since they want to make that difference and they want to make an impact, let them. Open your book to page 2. It can be as easy as giving them opportunities and coordinating for them to volunteer for Habitat for Humanities or a group like that, as well as encouraging them to mentor others, themselves or maybe even students if you have a high school co-op program. Let them teach the interns, we mentioned that. Give them a growth plan. Now in the survey you will see many of them will leave if they do not have some type of a training plan in a very short period of time. They want a plan. So as an HR consultant, I get a lot of phone calls saying, hey, help me develop a plan. All right, they want to sit down, they want that plan, and they don't just want a piece of paper filled out. They want you to help mentor them and grow them. It doesn't mean you have to send them to a training class that costs $1,000 for the day. It might mean that you do what we call job sharing or shadowing or something creative to give them that experience. And then, of course, embracing the community activities, which we talked about. All right? So that's on page 2 of your materials. Millennials want the full package. You guys have said this to me already, so you guys nailed it earlier. So they're looking, yes, they want the normal benefits package, but there's a few other things that you want that you guys have also mentioned. All right, so they want the complete package. They want the well-balanced life. They will actually take less money to be able to be home when it's that time. That is not their priority. All right, so they want flexibility. They want workplace flexibility. That's big. They will choose that over pay, 45% of them. Yes, ma'am, question, comment.
What happens to the business when all this is going on? And isn't your business suffering for all these different things that other millennials are trying to do? I don't think that a lot of the success in the business depends on somebody being enthusiastic about what they're doing and giving their allegiance to the business too. Working on a Saturday, working on a Sunday.
Correct.
doing so many things, so what happens?
So that's the big question. What's going to happen in 5 and 10 years from now? I don't have an answer for you, but it is, I mean, as a baby boomer, I see an issue. I absolutely see an issue.
So isn't part of that solution, that collaborative thing to say, and I know some companies, and I'm not that evolved yet, example is you'll work 12-hour 4 days instead of 5 days.
Correct.
10-hour or whatever. So maybe there's some flexibility where you can still meet the business needs, but meet those needs.
Correct. Very good point. So that's where, and then that's what we're going to talk about, is how can you adjust as a business to meet their needs but still keep yourself alive. And that's where creativity comes into play. Thinking outside that box. Yes, sir. Did you want?
Quick question.
Sure, sure.
Maybe you'll talk later. Is this just a process of them being young, and will they grow out of it? In other words?
That's a great question. You're hoping, right? Is you secretly got your legs crossed and your fingers crossed?
Well, they grow out of it. What I'm saying? And later on, they'll say, maybe money is a little more. I'd like to have a little more,
Yeah.
money, so I could,
Well, that happened to Gen Xers, though. Gen Xers, remember when you were Gen Xers in the room? Don't throw anything. But when you first came out, you were nicknamed as what? Lazy generation. Remember that? That was actually a nickname for the generation. And then after about 4 to 5 years into them working in the workforce, they changed their tune. All right, and then became known as the tech savvy generation. But there was a little bit of that in the beginning. So that is up for grabs there. Who knows what'll happen? Maybe they'll change their tune. Or, however, I feel because of the mass sheer numbers, which is why I'm here, 50% of the workforce, I'll say that again, in the year 2020, 75% in the year 2025. I don't know that that'll actually spread through. I think what'll happen is businesses are going to adjust the way we do business, and we're going to make those changes. I mean, seriously, we've already adjusted, as I have, to some of the things that the millennials have brought to the workforce. How many of you guys use your iPhones as a alarm clock, as a GPS, etc.? They brought that to us. So there's a lot of things they brought that we baby boomers and Gen Xers said, hey, I like this. And that's where we're going with it. So what I share when I talk about managing the generations is you can take all of those baby boomers out of the workforce. You can take all 50% out. What they like and what they brought to the workforce, many of those behaviors that are already changing the way we do business are still here, and we like them. We want them to stay. So that's the scary part, though, is we like work-life balance. I'm like, wow, I used to work 24 hours a day. Maybe I do want to go adapt that style a little bit more so. So you're seeing some of that too. Yes, sir, comment.
We're starting to see that shift already. Companies like Google and Apple, that's why they're doing more of an open learning environment. They're not doing offices and walls.
Correct.
It's more collaborative environments. And so for businesses today, knowing what's coming and the generation we will be hiring, I think it's important for us to rethink, to be able to adapt to what we know will be.
You're absolutely right. And we're going to talk about those virtual platforms as well. We'll talk about that too in a minute. Yes, sir.
Just to
Sure.
piggyback off of that comment, a couple of years ago, I went to Seattle on a work conference and toured the Amazon, the facility, the campus, and their entire main office operations are open floors. There are collaborating rooms. There are rooms where you can go just to kind of veg out, or a lunch hour or extended period of time if you need downtime. They were very flexible in their workspace.
Yeah, very much so.
Everything inside the building too,
Correct.
on their campus. Like workout facilities.
Yes, dry cleaners,
Dry
yes.
cleaners, daycare.
Daycare.
So it's changing.
It's one-stop shopping at work, isn't it? Yes, sir.
You mentioned earlier about the promotion in 2 years.
Yes, that's statistics, yes.
Is that due to the fact there's actual underlying reality of I gotta pay bills now?
It's an
That
expectation.
I'm not entitled as much as to what we think and they think?
I don't think as much as the money, because they're not into money. It's more of I'm entitled to this. Either my parents told me this, or my college told me this. Somebody's told me that I'm going to move up super fast.
They told them you're great. You know what? Everything you did was amazing.
Yes.
Even
Yeah.
when it wasn't, it was amazing. That C you got, it wasn't your fault. It was the teacher's fault. It really should have gotten an A.
This is here.
I mean, that's the mindset.
Right. The baby boomers are known for being the helicopter parents. You know, where we swooped in and we saved them. They didn't have to solve problems. They didn't have to resolve issues themselves, which is why I always have a job, because I teach conflict management. And I know that they'll always need that. The other thing that's out there, and many of you may be aware, is the lawnmower parents, where the parents went in front of the millennials and paved the way. So they're used to having a lot of success, whether they did get a B or a C, and lots of recognition for that. So, Katie, go ahead. No.
One thing I was going to say, my sister's a dean at a university, and one of the things that she mentioned was she gets these kids that have been raised by helicopter parents, which is such a disservice to your children, but she gets them and then they drop them off at school and they set these kids up for failure because they don't know how to balance a checkbook, they don't know how to wash their laundry, they don't know how to do anything. And so they come to this campus and they just lose their mind because they can't do anything for themselves. They have done nothing for themselves, and it sets them up for failure.
I heard my son speak. He graduated from high school last week, and they were at graduation 2 weeks ago down at Wolstein Center. And they were standing out there, you know, picture time, and the guys are talking about, these are all guys, because this is the son, where they're going to college, and one of them says, yeah, you know what, does your college have laundry service and room cleaning, house cleaning? And I looked over there and I went, no, no, no. I was like, what? But that's the expectation.
It is.
Yes, there are two more, and then we'll keep going.
Just one more comment
Sure.
on this whole thing. You know, another observation I had at the Amazon campus, which I think is sort of a big example of
Yes, a great one.
millennial thing. And you're right, they brought an entire city to this campus.
Yes.
It is, in this area of Seattle, it is a completely redone city structure. But the other thing is, and I don't know if you touched on this, was workplace attire. There is
We'll get to
what most of us are wearing is not what is in vogue or even expected
That is a
or
big
encouraged.
No.
They are almost, and it's not even business casual. It is stuff you get out of the
That's
bed.
a huge
Yeah.
issue.
Now, one of my big clients, and please don't throw anything, is the Cleveland Browns. So I work with those guys, and they have 148, I think it is, 40 interns. And so their attire is very, very casual, flip-flops, etc. Highland Software is another one as well, that the attire is very casual, even here in Cleveland. But where if you were out there in Seattle, this is going to be they're a little bit more progressive than we are.
Well, look, even the Browns changed their attire.
No comment. I have confidentiality, but yeah. So let me keep going. Oh, do you want to make one comment? Sure.
It's job search. This group just thinks all I have to do is look online.
My phone.
Find a job and apply online. No follow-up necessary. I either fit it or I don't, instead of relationship development.
Correct, correct. And there's no such thing as sending thank you notes. That was one of the things I used to teach. And that's something my friend Chris teaches. Yeah, there's no such thing of that.
Certainly
So.
not by mail.
That generation,
Maybe
yeah.
send an email, maybe, but never by mail.
Maybe a text.
That's right.
All right, let's keep going, because great things. Did you know 69%, another stat, 69% of the millennials feel there's no need to come to work, right, as far as being actually in the office. Attendance is not necessary. We can work at home. Right, and I'm just, you know, different day. So don't forget, too, when you're offering the benefit package, that you also think about travel. Travel is super important to our young friends. All right, they're interested in going abroad. They want to work abroad. They want to study abroad. They want this experience at some point in their career. 59% will tell you that. All right. So think about relocation if you have different facilities. That's important. I was with last week I was with the VP of Timken HR, and that's one of the things that he's in charge of, is figuring out programs for Timken that will take their young friends overseas. All right. IBM also does an awesome job of that. So that's important. They also want to retire, so they're going to think about planning for retirement as well. Next thing, we were talking about getting comfortable. This gentleman was talking about that. Number 4 is getting comfortable. Millennials want to work in a collaborative, warm environment. Now let me define that for you. So yes, they're interested in jeans should be allowed to be worn to work at some point. At least 79% of them feel this way, which is a lot. They also feel that they want a more social atmosphere where they can have friends, 88% of them. So you see more bowling, you know, on Friday night as a group, etc. Things like that that organizations are planning and putting into play. Also, too, the comfortable work environment is important to them. Stock that refrigerator, that's important to them. They're used to having all of that comfort of home. They also want those huddle rooms where they can go and collaborate. And yes, baby boomers have a tough time with millennials. I get that phone call a lot. Can you come in and help me with these two different generations who see things differently? But the millennials, I don't want to bash them. They will flex too. The other generations, if we can figure out a way to meet them halfway. So that might mean, let me go back here real quick, that you are collaborating through Skype with the baby boomer. All right, so that maybe a baby boomer wants to meet face to face, millennial wants to meet over their technology. All right, so that might mean some type of Skype or Facebook or FaceTime or whatever you call it. So any of those to help kind of figure out a way halfway to come to some type of an agreement of how we'll interact from a baby boomer's communication style to a millennial's communication style. So sometimes we have to be creative and help them to be creative so that they can be productive for us. All right. Technology, everybody agree with this one? Millennials are driven by technology. This is typically a question asked in the interviewing process. They are in heaven when you have the technology. They will ask you that up front. Will they have it? If they do not have that technology on day one, you're going to have a big issue because they expect that. I see the heads of the millennials shaking right now. They say, 59% of them say that the state-of-the-art technology is a key factor in picking the job and the company to work for. Very, very important. They don't want face-to-face. They are less than the baby boomers. They will communicate face-to-face, don't get me wrong, but that's not a desire. Where we see that a huge desire with our current leaders, still in the positions, most of companies, and that's the baby boomers. So the ways to compromise, I mentioned it earlier though, would be the social networking platforms or social communication, like the go-to meetings, those type of Skypes. Those are one way to communicate. If they are going to be held in face-to-face meetings and you want them to come, the less casual of the conference room, the better. Obviously, that's important to them. So page 2, in summary, let's talk about what we've covered so far. How are we doing on time? We got to keep going. So we've talked about all of the 5 key pieces I wanted to make sure you understand about them. And then just to summarize on page 2 or 3, I think it is 2, 3, you'll see the checklist. Millennials have different motivations. We talked about that. They want constant feedback. They want the excellent benefit package with the comfortable work environment. Some key things to walk away from this one on. Some additional findings I want to share before we have to say goodbye is that they don't believe that they have to win their leadership positions by paying the dues like we did. So this is a phrase that millennials you would not hear come out of their mouth. They don't believe they have to do that. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, what, after all is said and done and you're reading this, and you're listening to it, what happens to the company?
I know.
Research done as to comparisons of how the company is successful with, you know, incorporate some of it. But I mean, if you're going to incorporate all of it, does it damage the business?
Well, statistically speaking, they're going to tell you that millennials are more creative and more tech savvy, and that will actually grow the business. So if you look at Urban Bound and Deloitte and some of those surveys, pardon?
Have they?
Yeah, well, they're not in those leadership positions yet. So millennials are just now moving into leadership positions. They're not at the top to be able to compare. I know what you're asking me. You're asking me, is the company more successful? We'll have to wait for another 5 to 10 years to answer that one for you. Come back, yeah, so come back, absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
A follow-up question, I hear what you're saying, but why does the company have to change to their standard, go down to their level? We own the Gen X, the baby boomers. They own the company and say, yeah, you perform or we're not hiring you. I mean,
sure. Well, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. You don't have to. If you own your own business, then you don't have to change. But I will say this: 75% of the workforce in the year 2025 will be millennials. So if you can hire other, older age employees, then you're okay. The issue is at some point your management team is going to become too old. You retire. They're going to want to retire. So where are you going to do then?
Yeah, but not only that, but it should be a desire. If I was, like a fast-growing, viable company, somebody might want, millennial might want to work for
possibly.
And they say, this is what we have. This is our standards. This is what we do.
But
sure.
But that's your customer base.
Well, no, I'm talking about different customers. I can see it conforming to, conforming to sell to a customer, but the employees, I think, should be.
Sir?
I don't know.
What I find interesting about this conversation is that when baby boomers were 25 and 30 years old, all they did was complain about senior management, not making room for them in their generation and their value system. And now we sit here as those same people saying the same thing about the next generation, proving the point that it's hard to move over.
Yes, yes. But and you're absolutely right. This generation, though, is slightly bigger than the baby boomers, but you're absolutely right.
And eventually baby boomers said, we're going to be bigger than you, we're just going to wait for y'all to retire, we're going to run the business our way. And we've been doing that for a couple of decades now. And it's hard to look over the shoulder and see another one as big as we are that's going to be doing the same thing.
Correct. And there are children.
It's hard to let go. It's a human trait.
And there are children in many cases. So you're right.
This comes with consequences.
Yes. And the consequences may be what this woman's mentioned over here. The business may not survive or may not strive. I mean, if you look at the S&P 500 index, there was an article by InnoSight that 75% of the businesses will not be, that are on the S&P 500 index right now, there in the year 2028. So if they don't make the changes. So there is some stats that there's a cover article that you can look at, and people are talking about keeping up with the change and making the changes necessary. And part of those forces of change, number 3 on the 5 forces of change, is the generational piece. So if you're looking at future of work, it's another program I speak
I
on.
was just going to say, it's balance, because the millennials are here, and there's some good that they bring to it, and from the boomers generation, there's some not so good. And both groups, if you run a successful business, you're going to incorporate what works, and hopefully you'll educate other generations on some of the old things still do work.
Right.
Because one thing, I just want to make one other point that it's kind of a piggyback off of Peter's. I was thinking about all the things millennials want. They are diametrically opposed to what my customers are asking for. They want it now. They don't care if someone has to stay late. So we have to balance our customer base, our workforce, and find a way to make them all meet. But my customers are not at all the do it when you feel like it, or if you want flex time. If they want an order, they want it when they want it.
And possibly your customers are not, the decision makers are not millennials yet.
It's part of it.
Part of it, because they're not into those positions. Remember, millennials are not making those senior management decisions yet. So that's what.
And boomers are forgetting what they were in the 70s.
Yes.
In the late 60s. And we somehow survived, divided, found a way to keep, hopefully, some of our values, and then moved ahead with different ways of doing things. And I would expect the millennials will evolve and take what they bring to the table and make it better.
Right. You're right. Right. All right. Well, so let me just mention this. That this is another thing from the survey. This is actually a photo from the actual survey itself. 2 out of 3 millennials say, just overall, that they will leave an organization by the year 2020. So this was conducted in the latter part of 2016. So their life expectancy of an organization, their commitment is not that great anyway. This is no reason. They're just going to keep moving. They feel they need to move up to the ladder. Yes, sir.
Would you say the baby boomers, as other people have said, have been more willing to wait their turn, so to speak? Millennials' mindsets, if you don't want it, I'm not going to wait my turn. I'll just go recreate it.
Correct. Well, I mean, the statistics, and Chris could speak to this, are amazing for the numbers of people that leave in less than 30 days. So if they get within an organization from the millennial generation as compared to the baby boomers, here's a comparison that they have already. So they are not patient from that perspective. Just statistically speaking. And again, I encourage you to take a look at these. One thing I will say to you, and this is their greatest fear, guys, when you hire them, if you address these in the interview, that will help you sell your organization, because the greatest fear of a millennial is that they're going to get stuck with no development opportunities. So if you talk about your training plan, you're going to appeal to them. A job that won't match my personality, if you can talk about how you match people's strengths to the job, and project work. Remember, they don't always have to stay in that job. They can do project work and cross over and learn from other aspects of the organization. And their third greatest fear, statistically speaking, is that they're going to work too much. All right? So management, I know, chuckles there, management. The word, survey connects the word empowerment. How do they define the word empowerment? All right, because everybody asks that. They want to make decisions, independent decisions that will chart their own course, their leadership plan. They want to decide. Look at these guys over here shaking their head going, yep, yep, she got it. All right, so they want that freedom and autonomy. That's okay. They want comfortable feedback, and yes, they will listen to you. So a lot of times there is a misconception out there, so please know. They want that feedback, and yes, they want it at least once a week. Remember, they were raised playing games where they got it every second. And they will listen to that, so they will take it to heart. So keep that in mind. A couple more things. Work-life balance. We've used that quite a bit today. What does that exactly, based on our surveys, does that mean to a millennial? So what that means is, yes, it's not necessarily the hours as much as they want enough leisure time for their personal life. Their leisure time can happen during the day. They want flexible working hours, not limited to just those day hours. They want recognition. They want that pat on the back from number one person they want it from is the boss. And they want flexible working conditions, meaning they can work from home when they like to, and they want a convenient work location. So distance is an issue for them. Couple more things let's talk about real quickly on page 3 for me, if you could flip over. Communication. These guys are digital natives. Okay, we know they're super duper tech savvy. All right, so they are all about that technical. We talked about how having their technology available to them is super important, and communicating with them is super important. So those are some things. They want constant feedback, constant access. Some of my organizations, FedEx and some of Custom Critical and some of those clients, have actually built what they call an internal Facebook, if you will, like a blog, whatever you want to call it, internal intranet, where it has the ability, a blog, where they can communicate directly with senior management. Remember I talked about they want to reverse mentor. They want to also have constant conversation on a regular basis with the president, the CEO. So earlier I was just meeting with the HR director from the zoo, and we were talking about that. They want constant access to Brian, their CEO, be able to give him feedback on a regular basis. Very important to this generation. So think about how you can use that to be able to do that, your technology, because that's how they want to communicate. They want cutting edge of technology. We talked about that earlier, but that's super important to them as well. They want, this is important, is they can juggle several tasks at one time. Growing up, and to this day, what does a millennial keep track of on their phone? How do they communicate?
Texting.
Texting, what else? Emails. Social media, Twitter, Facebook. Facebook actually is for their parents, right? So Snapchat, the Vine, and Instagram. They see that just as our new generation Z, when they come out in the year 2020, see that as their job to keep up with all that technology. So that's important to them. They see that that's part of their job, if you will. Also, too, they want things immediate. We talked about that earlier, but they're interested. They have difficulty waiting in line. They would much rather order their Starbucks ahead of time, walk in and pick it up. All right, so that's important, and many of the fast food restaurants have already figured that out. So we talk about social media, we talk about internet, just real quickly, if you would, take a look at this. How many times does a millennial use the intranet compared to the baby boomer a day? Statistically speaking, 21 times a day compared to a baby boomer only 11 times a day. Now when they're on the intranet, what are they doing? Let's take a peek at that. No, I hope. I think I walked too far. There we go. All right, so they connect. Okay, here it is. 62% of millennials will connect when they're away from home, based onto their intranet, whether it be a handheld phone or a laptop. It's how 62 compared to the 11, which would be the silent generation, or 35% to the baby boomer. And then what do they do when they're out there? They're all about text messaging 95% of the time. They'll do gaming around 60% of the time. So when they're out there, that's what they're doing. I know. So many companies are requiring them to turn off their phones. This is how important it is to them. So ponder that. Video messaging. So some interesting stats there for you. All right. Yes, ma'am. Katie.
Do you find that, so one of the things having two millennials in my home, I find that they also, do you feel like they're also going to change things socially? Because I feel like they are much more inclusive, less exclusive.
Correct.
They are much more, this is what I've learned just listening to conversation. They talk about things that were so, like in the workplace, that were like, oh, you don't talk about those things. They talk about it very openly, like, and very inclusively. I feel like they're going to also change. I mean, here's that's where companies, I think, have to figure out. You can build a bridge and you can make it very easy to go across. You can build a wall and they'll go somewhere else and take their business.
Correct. And I also think one of the things that they're adding to value I see already in the workplace is the giving back to the community.
Yes.
They have done so much already to encouraging businesses to give back. And not just the same charities that we gave to when I was a baby boomer in HR, different charities. I mean, they have a diverse, as you pointed out, way of looking at things.
Social things
Correct.
that are important to them.
Exactly. What's important to them is much different, yes. So there are some advantages. Yes, over here.
I was going to say they're changing the face of philanthropy too.
Correct.
As you talk about giving back to the community, and they have a different mindset about giving, where their parents may have given to bricks and mortar. They're not interested in the bricks and mortar.
Correct.
I want to see the impact now.
Yes, good point. They want to do the work.
Right.
They want to do the work. They will give up their Saturday or Sunday for that. Maybe not to come to the business and work for you, but that.
But I think the challenge is that they have no coping strategies, right? We're starting to see a higher level of suicide amongst this group. These are some of the real challenges that we can talk about who they are and where they are, but parenting is such a critical role for mentoring or their support systems because they internalize things so much. We're starting to see these types of behaviors of self-destruction.
Good point. Good point. Good point.
Yeah,
See?
how much of this, in your opinion, is based on what, I mean, they weren't born, I don't think they were born with, you know, with these genes that said this is what I want to do. How much has been sold to them or marketed to them to produce the, and really any generation, but I mean, millennials, it's even easier to say millennials because if you talk about the technology that maybe millennials like to take credit for, but were first developed in another generation altogether.
It's true. I mean, they're a latchkey generation. Both mom and dad worked. First latchkey generation in history. So there's a piece of that that's going to be sold to them by the media and the things that they saw. They don't watch TV as much as you know. They're more on their phone. Yeah.
Because of manufacturers, it was a vision, and we'll say somebody like Apple or had that vision years ago.
That's a good point.
To develop a product that actually changed how what they are today, I suppose, what we are today.
Right. Did you want to add to that?
It's interesting was Steve uses the word soul, but is this the generation that has accepted so many different things that come to them? You had mentioned, you know, the fact that you know their flexibility, the openness. Some of that's already been there. I mean, you know, from Amazon to Highland, the work flexibility in Europe, but we didn't experience here because we didn't have that global. Now we have a global communication everywhere. We have now a push for even in any generation to be more responsible, take those risks, don't be a fear of failure.
Right.
So I think that all's coming into this generation.
Sure.
So many points. We talk about video games. I mean, I was playing Pong. Granted, you can't
Yeah,
take it
Pong.
black and white TV nowadays in your pocket, but I mean, the video games have been there. It just now it's in a different format. It's portable. Is this the generation that everything that has come has been out there in a global and maybe in a 4D situation? Is it coming out of that?
I mean, you have to look at what shaped this generation. I mean, what shaped this? You know, school shootings, 911. I mean, there's lots of things that these guys saw, and they're the global citizens.
Instantaneous. You know, when you talk about 9/11, I mean, we were in tune to that minutes later.
Right.
Whereas the shooting of John F. Kennedy was
the assassinations.
or the shooting of Reagan. That could have been a day later until you find those things out. Here, it's minutes.
Correct.
And it's all coming into this generation in unfathomable ways.
It's a different expectation, different way of living. So I know we're getting, let me go through a couple more things because I'm going to have to say goodbye to you guys. But just want to mention to you, to meet the expectations of the expectations of the millennial generation, if you can do me a favor and turn in your book to page 4. Just want to summarize what you can take away from this program and use. And then I have what I would consider the snapshot of this generation slide I want to share with you. These guys want a sense of, what do they want from the employer? They want a sense of purpose. All right? So if you can help them to see their sense of purpose, that would be great. They don't want just to help the senior levels line their pockets. They want to understand, and they will judge how you provide service to your customers and what your expectations are when they come in. They want to be developed. Not just the growth of the company, they want to be developed. Super important. That is the number one reason. If you look at Gallup and you look at the reason millennials are leaving, you asked me about, the reason they're turning over and leaving companies, it's because they don't have that growth plan, that training plan and recognition from the boss. Again, number two, recognition, all right? They want that feedback. They want that, how am I doing? And then they want their skills to be used in creative ways. They do not want to be micromanaged. Give them the assignment. We call that lateral management. Give them the assignment and give them boundaries, set the expectations, the budget, etc., and then let them go. They want to be in charge of themselves. Last but not least, of course, work-life balance. So just a friendly reminder there. To me, this slide really sums up the difference between millennials and baby boomers. If you take a look at this slide, this is right off of the Urban Bound study that I keep talking about. This is what values are stronger for millennials compared to older generations. Okay, specifically out there, of course, now is the baby boomers with very little bit of silent. Look at their number one. All right, they're all about happiness and being passionate. All right, and there's your inclusion one, Katie, diversity. Look at what's important to our values of our older generation, which we mind: duty, integrity, justice. We value things that are very different than they value. So this, to me, is, I think, the underlying core difference between the generations. All right? So with that, Peter Drucker, one of my favorite authors, I'll leave you with this quote: "The greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence, but is to act with yesterday's logic." So hopefully today I've given you some new logic, some new information to take away of what the millennials are after, what they're looking for in businesses, what their desires are to help you. We've covered all that we wanted to cover in a very short window of time. So I asked for a candy bar before I give away my books. What somebody share with me, and look, I got some good stuff up here. What one thing did you learn that you want to take away, you want to start doing as a result of hanging out this afternoon? Yes, ma'am. Don't call them millennials. Exactly. Communicate. There you go. Two from this table right here. All right. What one thing did you learn that you want to stop doing? Thank you for sharing.
Oh, that's okay, thanks.
Thank you. What one thing, somebody, I got more candy up there. Don't micromanage the millennials. All right, nice. All right, somebody give me one other thing that you want to stop doing. Over here. Here's a millennial over here.
I would like the Reese's, by the way.
Okay. That is a millennial. Do you want the Hershey's?
I don't care. I like them both. Thank you.
That is a millennial. She forgot the question. What one thing do you want to stop doing?
Text it to her.
Oh, yes, I want to be more open-minded to the the baby boomers.
Well said.
Well said. Well said. As I mentioned, I did this for a downtown hospital, which I won't share their name, because the doctors, who are baby boomers, were struggling with the millennials. But that was one of the things that I was asked as I was leaving: could I do a class for the millennials? So to help them understand us. And that is actually a great idea. So very nice. So without further ado, let's draw some prizes here. References in the back. I just want to mention page 5. My business cards are around. Did everybody put your name in the fishbowl? Your business cards? So I'm going to give them away. I'm not going to call you. I'm not going to call, I promise. Not soliciting. Just looking to give away some great books on the topic at hand. All right. Steve, you want to draw it for us? Okay. We're going to draw 2. First person gets to choose. How are we on time?
Yeah.
Oh, Evelyn Chernikov.
Yay! She did have the most questions. There you go. Thanks again. All right, next one. This one is Managing the Millennials. Another great author.
Okay, Ruben Moultrie.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Ruben, make sure you read that.
Okay.
Okay.
We good? All right, so
Just give it to one of your millennials to read.
Thank you again. Steve, it's all yours. Thank you again for having me. My card's up here. If I can share, we can go more in depth. All right.